I think a lot of us would benefit from giving ourselves the opportunity to actually feel things. Because oftentimes we beat ourselves up for feeling negative emotions, for feeling sad, for feeling hurt. And sometimes we look down on ourselves for it. Sometimes we feel like less of a person for it. When in fact, we're just human. When you feel any negative emotion or you feel any form of hurt, you would think that the first step in addressing these things would be to feel them, which is true. And a lot of us know this. It's common sense, when you think of it initially. But the thing is, a lot of us unknowingly skip this first step and forget to actually properly feel something because we either, one, avoid it, or two, we feel ashamed with the fact that we're feeling it and we beat ourselves up over it. So in the case of avoiding it, we may distract ourselves through coping mechanisms that temporarily alleviate the negative emotion. So for example, in response to feeling sad, you may start scrolling on TikTok, or you may play video games, you may use porn, drink alcohol, take drugs, binge eat, you name it. We all have our different ways of alleviating negative emotions and distracting ourselves from them. And in the case of feeling ashamed, right? Let's say you feel sad, and let's say you feel really sad. Not only do you just feel sad, you're ashamed of the fact that you feel sad. You resent the fact that you feel sad. You feel guilty. You feel embarrassed, maybe even pathetic. And you just end up thinking, damn, I hate my life. Why do I feel this way? Why this? Why that? Why X, Y, Z? But in either case, as you can see, if you don't properly feel the emotion, you end up feeling way worse because of it. And it leads to a lot of issues later down the line. Because in avoiding your emotions, you bottle them up, and bottled up hurt can result in angry outbursts, anger issues in general. Bottled up sadness can end up resulting in depressive episodes later down the line. Then, when it comes to shaming yourself and beating yourself up over your emotions, you're adding all of these unnecessary negative feelings surrounding that one emotion, and you end up feeling way worse than if you just felt it and you accepted the fact that you felt it and you made peace with it. Now, of course, feeling your emotions isn't going to be pleasant, right? Feeling them properly isn't going to be pleasant. If you need to, you're going to cry. And you're going to cry over certain feelings, you're going to feel overwhelmed. But the important thing is that you actually feel them. Because when it comes to emotions, there is no way around them. Anytime you try to go around them, they get worse. The only way is through, and the only way is to actually feel them. But I think to help with this, we need to remember the fact that our initial emotions are, for the most part, out of our control. You don't choose to feel a certain way. It just happens. It arises. It's like it's like a physiological response. That's why you can feel a lot of emotions in your body, right? And so we need to stop attaching morality to our emotions. We shouldn't feel responsible over something that just is. We shouldn't feel responsible over things that just are, because oftentimes emotions just are. We don't need to feel ashamed of it. We don't need to think they're good necessarily. We just need to accept them, recognize them for what they are, and feel them. And so, when we feel an emotion, right? let's say you feel sad. It doesn't have to be, oh, I feel sad. Why is this happening to me? I hate the fact that I'm feeling sad. Why am I like this? Why am I like that? Like, damn, you're such a sad boy. Like you're this, you're that. All of that is unnecessary. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the case either that you think, oh, I'm sad. That's okay. You don't need to think it's okay because sometimes it isn't okay. You can simply just realize that, yes, I'm sad. This sucks. And just leave it at that. Feel it. Let yourself feel it. Because emotions are meant to be felt and they're meant to be processed. And sometimes you're gonna cry. Sometimes you're gonna feel very intense feelings, especially if you've been bottling up so many things for so long. But at the end of the day, all of these things are meant to be felt. You need to accept the fact that you're feeling all these things. You need to accept the fact that you feel hurt. Because you might ask, oh, shouldn't we strive to change our emotional lives if they're impeding on us, if they're bothering us? Well, yes. But before you can change something, you need to accept it for what it is. You need to know what you're dealing with, right? And if you're constantly avoiding your emotions, or if your emotions are being clouded by all this shame, all this guilt, all this embarrassment, you're not gonna get a clear picture of what you're actually feeling. And so, how can you change something if you don't actually know what it is? How can you change your emotional life if you haven't been honest with yourself on what it is? That's why it's so important to be honest with yourself. It's so important to give yourself the permission to feel whatever it is you need to feel. Because until then, you're not going to know what you're dealing with. And if you don't know what you're dealing with, you're not going to be able to change it. And so, yeah, that is the main thing. It's really important to actually feel things because we live in a world wherein all of us either intellectualize our emotions or we avoid them or we simply attribute them to weakness, when in fact emotions are the most authentic parts of ourselves. You can say anything relating to whether or not they're valid, whether or not they're good. You can say all these things, but at the end of the day, they're the most authentic parts of ourselves, whether we like it or not. And so it's really important to listen in. It's really important to check in with what's actually there and to actually feel it. And because feeling it is required to actually process an emotion. And so, yeah, a lot of us beat ourselves up for simply being human. And we feel bad for feeling bad. But why can't we just feel bad and accept it? Feel bad and feel it. I think we would spare ourselves a lot of suffering if we just allowed ourselves to be imperfect and to be uncomfortable and to feel things, even if it hurts, even if we cry, even if we feel overwhelmed. And that's where being brave comes in, because sometimes, it is scary to feel certain things and it is hard. And so it's also important to be patient with yourself in that regard. But yeah, that's it for now. I'll just leave you with that message. Give yourself the permission to feel things. Because yes, it won't be nice in the moment, maybe. But it's gonna feel way better in the long run. And you'll be a lot better for it. So yeah. Have a good morning, my fellow peasants. Peace.